My name's Len Simon. I'm an animator, 2D animator, traditional animator for some. I've been in the industry since the late 80s. I guess I'm best known for my work at Fox Animation on Anastasia and Titan AE. I was an animation director there. Freelance for most of the other studios and directed sequences on stuff like Spirit, Prince of Egypt, Fat Albert, Eight Crazy Nights, Curious George, and then I guess recently Klaus for Netflix. I am a little bit different than the average artist. So for me, I grew up being told I cannot do it. Like I from everybody, like my dad was very critical of what I want to do for a living. My mother, on her deathbed, had my eldest brother promised that he would hinder me from getting into the industry. I'm not one of these guys that go, "Oh, I'm the best animator ever." It's like, no, I was terrible. Like in the regards of, I really didn't have the tools readily available to do what I wanted to do. It was always an uphill battle. I was fortunate enough when I went through my first year at Sheridan College. We got me and about 10 other people got plucked out of Sheridan to go to Ireland to work with Don Bluth at the end of All Dogs Go to Heaven. So I was lucky and just fell into the career, and my 10-year goal got sped up. Part of it was work ethic. So at the time, and I still do stupid hours, but it was just living, eating, sleeping animation, 100 hours a week in the studio, trying to learn and absorb as much information as I could and stuff. And that got recognized. And I guess Don and Gary saw the potential before I did. A large ingredient is work ethic. And if you're going to be successful at anything, not just animation, but any career, it's what are you willing to sacrifice, and what are you willing to do to get that information? And what it's about is about knowledge and learning. But the other thing is taking it seriously and understanding the education side. And I think this is a misconception. And again, you can apply this to any field, not just animation. A lot of people think that education is about getting a really good mark. My experience is when you think you've learned everything and you think you've got it, that's usually when you lose it. You hinder yourself from moving forward. At the very beginning, you're thinking about draftsmanship, certain animation principles, and getting that right in your animation. Well, that's second nature. It shouldn't be a question of if I can do a walk cycle or if the overlap is going to work. You should be aspiring to get to the position where I'm just thinking about a performance and making that character think a certain way or act a certain way, and thinking about the subtleties of the acting rather than having to think about, well, okay, well, how am I going to make them walk, and how am I going to make this overlap work? That should be second nature. For me, I'm not a big fan of accidental animation. So accidental animation is where you have a storyboard and your notes, and then you move stuff around, and you're hoping that a performance comes out of it. So you're doing actions, and then you got to shoot it to see if that works. And what does that look like? Oh, it looks like you started doing this. Oh, so I'm going to run with this, and you go in a direction based on how your drawings turn out. Sometimes it's like, oh, no. Just throw the drawings out and just do what the intention is. That's the importance of doing thumbnails ahead of time, planning out your scene, and basically having an intent for your scene before you start. So your outcome is basically what's in your head. So if someone looks at it and says, no, that's not quite what I was intending, if it's a director, whoever your supervisor is, then you could turn around and have another talk about where to go with it. Almost my entire career with Don Bluth, we would use live action reference. There's a couple different ways of using that reference. Some people would do a direct tracing, and that would be as close to what was called rotoscoping as you can be. And then there's others that use it as reference, and they translate the action into a performance. So what the live action does, it gives you consistency of a performance. We had like 28 animators working at Fox. We were working on a movie called Anastasia. So Anya, the main character, is a female. So by doing live action reference, we're given a constant or very consistent performance. So the next stage is, how do you translate that? So it's an analysis of the information that you put onto the screen. If you just rotoscope or trace it, it looks very flat. It looks floaty. Like if you think back to old films like Gulliver's Travels, like the live action characters always look like they're almost walking in slow motion or underwater. So the idea is to analyze it, put animation principles in it to bring it to life. So originally, Anastasia was the bulk of the story remained, but we couldn't figure out the villain. Me and Don actually sat down in early stages when we're still developing the story. We actually wrote a script, and it was a lot of back and forth, and like, I don't like this idea. Well, your idea sucks, and we're button heads left, right, and center. And there was a group of us that were in those initial story meetings and stuff. And then, then we had this one day where me and Don just butted heads really badly. And then he kicked me out of his office. And so I go off on a huff, and I'm like sitting there under my desk, arms crossed. And a couple of guys that I work with, what happened? It's like, we heard some shouting and stuff. And I said, yeah, just get out of here. I don't want to talk about it. And then Don walks around the corner. Len, in my office now. So I'm going, here we go, round two. And he was actually really cool. He turned around and he says, like, well, what if we did this? So we couldn't hold up the crew. So we actually started working on the film. And we figured, you know what? We got enough that we'll fill in the blanks later on. And then we started discussing, well, like Rasputin is a shoe-in for a villain. And then we had the challenge of, all right, now we're going to have Rasputin. We tweaked the script and we're ready to go. And we only have 3 months left to do the character. And we're going like, what? So the problem with them is it's so much pencil mileage. It was impossible for him to do any kind of get any kind of footage with the character. So we had to go super, super fast with them. I had to rough out, literally, I think they gave me 20 feet a day to rough out of his animation to hand to the animators so we can actually hit our deadline. I'm always one for a challenge. So I actually was given about a month to do all the animation. And I think I did, on average, about 45 feet a day of roughing. And then did like first, middle, last, and sometimes like one drawing a foot for model, for the animators to follow through. It was a challenge, but again, when you're working on films, you don't have a choice. You have to get it done. So I believe I put myself in the hospital doing the hours I was doing at the time and stuff, but we hit our numbers and we got the film done on time, and it actually was pretty successful for what it was. I would sit in the front of the auditorium and I'd watch the audience because I know every single scene. I've watched them inside and out. I can tell you exactly the story behind every scene, even without even looking at it. So I'm watching the audience, and especially when there's younger kids, and you hear all these, like in the audience, they can hear little, is she dead? And like there's a silence, and everyone's just like, then the music starts and it's happy music, and no, she's not dead. So even just that music following really enables you to relax after a scary sequence. And then same thing with the audience. I always get a kick out of it the first time someone sees Anastasia and you're in limbo after seeing this scary like rant with this Rasputin character, and then he dies. He goes into the water, and then you see him in limbo for the first time, and he starts to talk, and his eyeball pops out, and the audience is just like, "Did I just see what I thought I saw?" And they're taken aback because every Disney film you've seen, you don't see stuff like this, and like just an eyeball popping out, and then you have that line from the bat going, "Wow, that just fell right up there, sir." And he pops the eye back in, and then you see everyone's faces just like light up, and now everything that you see with the mouth falling off his hand, "Oh, I'm falling apart," you sort of understand these are the rules now, and you can accept him as more of a comedic character or someone that you don't take as seriously. So I dabble in other things, like I do t-shirt designs, and right now I started doing COVID masks and stuff. I got a really good printer who does printing for me and stuff like that. And that's how I think when I'm doing cell phone covers or things like that. And then it's also making a product fun for people. Everything has a purpose, and like I think of it as puzzle pieces. So don't go into an industry thinking that I want to be an animator and this is I want to be the next Glenn Keane or John Pomeroy or whoever. Like, just be the best you can be, but also think about what you're contributing, what you're bringing to the table, and you'll find that there's always an opening. You think about the market, think of what the need is, and then think of these voids to fill. And I think that's another thing that studios look for. It's like, well, we have tons of content like this. We have tons of content like this. Ooh, this is original. I haven't seen this before. Or this is up and coming. This is really big right now. Oh, you got a script that's in that genre. Great. So that's a necessity and stuff. So like just keeping up with the market, trying to be open-minded. You're not always going to have the opportunity to do what you want to do as an individual. You may have to, at the beginning, do something that people want, and then you again, once you're successful, then they'll learn that, oh, well, you're a commodity, and people will end up wanting what you do. A lot of people come in and they want to be a directing animator or a character designer or whatever, and they always have these aspirations to be the top guy. You can't just look at the steps of a ladder and say the top one is the most important one, because that's where you are when you're doing the work. And going, without those bottom rungs of the ladder, you'll never get up there. They're all equally as important. If this is your dream and what you really want to do, it may not evolve the way you want it to, but sometimes you'll find your niche and an opportunity that you'll be able to do so much more than when you give yourself a restriction or a limit.